Hi everyone! Hello! Right, so we start off again, sorry about that. Yeah, we're now going to hear from Pentascape's director and co-founder, Chris Willmott.
I'm a developer as well, so
Oh,
it's all right. I'm actually doing stand-up comedy. No, I'm not. Yes. You can all read that. So I thought I would do a bit more of a practical talk instead of just going through some stuff. Originally when I first put this together, I was like, I know I can introduce people to some of the things I've been fiddling around with, and I thought I'd share with you guys. But rather than just doing a presentation, I'll do a live demo as well. Quite why I chose to do a live demo, really don't know. So it turns out I lied. It's not just about hacking, and there's a little bit less JavaScript than I originally made out. So I'm going to be going through how to upgrade your voicemail with Cloud Voice. Has anyone come across Cloud Voice before? It's really bright, actually. I can't see anyone. There we go. Anyone done Cloud Voice before at all? Excellent. Can I get a quick show of hands? Who's technical? Okay, keep your hands up if you also write code. Keep your hands up if you know JavaScript. Okay, so those of you that don't know JavaScript, don't worry too much because there's quite a lot you can do without actually knowing too much JavaScript. So a quick background, why on earth am I that fussed by voicemail? Well, annoyingly enough, despite text, email, WhatsApp, people still leave voicemails. Maybe it's just me. And I think we've got a bit of an opportunity for a nicer experience for somebody who's tried to get hold of you, and for whatever reason they then end up on voicemail, and whatever comes with your phone tends to just be personal greeting that you can record, and then you get a message. Some phones are clever enough to show you some kind of a readout as to who that person is, and you can press play, but that's about it. So I thought, why can't we do something a bit better than this? You want to allow somebody to, when they're leaving that message, to actually take some kind of action or find out, was it an urgent call? Was it just spam? What was going on here? Make it useful. There's such a delay on this, it's ridiculous. I'm going to press a button over here. So a couple of examples. These are genuine examples. I've changed the name. This is a good one. Hi Chris, it's Fu here. Please can you give me a call back when you get this? I can see I've had a missed call. Why do you even need to leave a voicemail? And this is another really good one I used to get all the time. Maybe it was just working in public sector, I don't know. But people would leave me a voicemail summarizing the content of an email that they had already sent me. So I've now got on my smartphone a missed call, a voicemail, and one extra email. Usually I read the email first, and then I go to the voicemail and, oh yeah, I'm a step ahead. So I thought, how can we try and sort this out? This is another favorite of mine, pocket calls, where you don't even get anything. So what do you need to actually do this? So you need a phone, obviously. That's number 0 on the list. Number 1 on the list is a cloud voice platform of your choice. There is such a delay on that. Mobile carrier which supports call divert. Now, if you have voicemail, you probably already have a carrier that supports call divert. If you just say you're with Vodafone, just Google Vodafone call divert setup, and it's like an old console game hack where it's like *#62 blah blah blah. You've got to type in this thing, and there's a code to check whether it's enabled. There's a code to actually change the number. You'll see where we're going to go with this in a tick. And what you essentially do is, instead of the default on your phone being going straight to voicemail, you specifically tell it to go to a new number, which will be the number that you set up on the cloud platform. So instead of hitting your voicemail, they now hit what is essentially the entry point into what I'm about to go through. You also need slow. You don't actually need coding knowledge, but a good kind of logical brain really helps for this process, because it's going to be like a flow chart. But if you do know some JavaScript, maybe you can write better code for Google to make their slides faster. In addition to that, you can do some nice logic, time of day stuff, and connect to any API you like. Right, the cost. I think cost is really important because everyone's like, this all sounds great, but usually things cost money. It's cheaper than you think. The beer's a clue. So mobile divert costs are usually the most expensive part of this process. Depending on the tariff you're on, or whether you're on pay monthly, pay as you go, that is usually taken out of your phone bill. So where voicemail before is kind of covered, if somebody leaves you a voicemail, it doesn't cost you anymore. You're going to get billed per minute for the amount of time they're effectively diverted to this. But if a voicemail message is usually, 30 seconds a minute? If that comes out your minutes anyway, it doesn't really cost too much. If it's pay as you go, maybe you're talking pence. I don't really think it's going to be too much of an issue. You do also get costs from the cloud platform itself, but we're talking pence. So has everyone heard of PaaS before? Yeah, platform as a service. So this is communication platform as a service. It's effectively anything to do with voice and SMS as well, incidentally, but you can code it. So as developers, for us, that's great because it's like, we can go and create anything. So the platform I'm going to be demoing today is Twilio. I have no affiliation with this whatsoever. This is not a sales thing. This is just the one I find easiest to use. Cover that. This is disappointingly slow. Come over here. It's very developer friendly. It's not the clicker, it's actually the laptop. Crikey. Twilio have a very good UK implementation. So what I mean by that is when you go to pick a number, so you do have to buy a number. It costs $1 a month. We've got 12 of them. You can buy a number that's a mobile number or pretty much any area code in the UK. So if you had a business in, say, Colchester, you could buy a Colchester area code phone number that would then have exactly the same area code to the one you're in. So if you wanted to put that number on something, people aren't going to be like, why am I ringing this weird number? And they do the 03 numbers, 08 numbers and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a couple of numbers beginning 07. One is for my voicemail, which is where I set up the divert. It's also really good if you're giving phone numbers out to people that you don't really want to phone you. You just give them the voicemail number, and then when they ring, they just always hit voicemail. It's a good way of screening calls. Another thing with Twilio, I'm not affiliated. We did this already. So there are other platforms out there, so I don't want to be biased to Twilio. This is going to be painstaking. Take some sips of your drinks. There's another one. And then I have no idea why this is so slow. Maybe the live demo is going to go fine. And this was the problem bit. I like this, I can cope with this. How am I doing for time? Is time running slower?
You only use 10 minutes so far.
Live demo. Okay, right. This is the bit where it all gets very amusing. We want to reload that. Multi-factor. So I need to see if people at the back can actually see any of that. Shall I zoom in a bit? So you can see here. Can anyone see that balance? No? More zooming. My satisfaction, Twilio. Go away. Is that better? So yeah, that's our whole entire company's phone system. Costs about $20 a month. So yeah, it's not expensive at all. Okay, right. So the first thing we're going to do is show you what the studio looks like. Can we? That wasn't clever. Get rid of that. hopefully you guys can see that at the back. See that at the back? Excellent. So Studio Flow, so Twilio has a whole bunch of different services. This particular feature only came out probably about 6 months, 8 months ago or so-ish. Getting some nods, sounds right. And this is, when this came out, I was like, great. I do like programming, but I also like a really easy interface to just throw stuff together, especially when you're trying to sketch an idea, get something done quickly. So incoming call is effectively the first thing you connect to, and that is connected to this box here, which is really hard to show you because of the screen. It's funny, when I did this at work on a 4K screen, you can see it. There we go. Can you guys still see that? So each block is a widget, and there's a library of widgets. They call them widgets, I hate the word widget. Some of you will know why. And there's two main ones. Flow control does exactly what it sounds like. Voice is any particular action you want to carry out that's voice related. Then there's a bunch of messaging related ones, which is SMS. So on my current voicemail at the moment, the demos I'm showing you are kind of made up. But on my current voicemail, you can, if it's urgent, you can press 1 and it will send me a text through the system. The fun stuff are these ones. So you can run a function, you can make an HTTP request, which basically means you can now connect to any API on the internet. Twiml is their own markup language. It's kind of like a horrible bastardized version of XML, which takes a little getting used to. And I don't know what they do, that looks like new stuff. So each one of these blocks, the flow comes through. This is how the actual call will happen. So this one is, it's going to say, hello, I can't get to the phone right now, please leave a message, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. The language is British. Twilio is built on Amazon Web Services, so you have access to all of the voices that Amazon have as well, which is in this list, and we can change these. We're going to have an audience participation here. You can choose which ones you want. So who we got at the moment? Brian. Should we have Brian? Should we change that to someone else? Do you see what Brian sounds like? See if this works. So first of all, I need to know what number to dial. So buying a number is really easy. Go to numbers, you click buy numbers, you search for a number. These are all the other numbers we've got.
Scroll past it.
Did I? Yeah. codeHarbour demo, there it is. Right, can ring it. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Let's stick that there. It's going to sound like phone jacker. So you have to imagine you wouldn't just dial this number. This would be the divert, so you'd reach this afterwards. Right, what does this do at the moment? Which one's that connected to? What I'll do is actually go with number 1 first. We were testing this a lot earlier, so, right.
Hello. I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as possible.
And we can now leave a message. So now we can start to do something a bit more fun. Should we change the voice to something silly? Yeah? Yes. What voice do we want? I don't think so, but we could do English, Australian, Canada, Indian. I think there's Welsh on here as well. US. Other languages probably not a good idea because it will try and phonetically read the English words in that language, which I've not actually tried before, so that could be fun. Do we want to pick one? Just shout out.
Australian.
Australian, okay.
And change hello for struth.
Struth. Okay, Nicole or Russell? Nicole. And you want Struth. How do we spell that?
REWTA.
Struth. Yeah? Are we done? Yeah? Go on then. So when you save it, it actually has a version history up here, so you can see the changes you've made. And even if you like move these boxes around, it even remembers that as well. There you go, 3 change to flow. Then you have to actually publish it. Done. Now just ring that number, and this is going to be the moment where I'm like, does it actually work?
Struth, I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll call you back as soon as possible.
So you can change the language. So we haven't actually done it in this demo, but you could, in a real world example, you could detect the area that they're in and then play the message that's in their regional accent, or if you've got other languages in here, you could do that as well. So, yes. When you've got a recording of the voicemail.
Chris, just a quick question.
Yes, yeah.
Does it actually have a translation service as well? I know you mentioned it.
This doesn't, but when I come on to the bit where I actually show you some code, there's nothing stopping you then taking that off to an external translation service and then coming back and doing something with it. Obviously, the only thing to remember with Voice Cloud is you've got somebody sat on the phone the other side, so anything you try and do needs to be fairly real time, otherwise they're just sat there waiting. Right, so we're also using Zapier. What about this? What did this do? Doesn't go anywhere. No. Okay. So I'm going to progress through this, but at the end I'll actually show you what we've got set up for our work number, which does something slightly different to what I'm showing you tonight, but I thought it'd be, if there's enough time. And how are we doing for time? Yeah. If you guys are interested, I'll show you what I'll get set up for work, which basically does a bit of time of day routing, connects to our CRM, works out who they are, then shows the number in Slack. So when the phone rings, it comes up in Slack at the same time, so we know whether to answer it or not. And that's just a post webhook through to Slack, so that's how this works. Right, let's go to level 2. Now that we know how we're doing this. Slow to net. So if at any point anyone has a question, it's probably easier just to throw them at me whilst we're waiting for this to load. So we're going to do level 2. Control click did not work.
Have you replaced your whole phone system with this?
Yep.
Okay.
Yay! There it is. It's all right, Twilio. Nobody's perfect. Good old reload. So what I'm going to do now is this configuration is very, very easy to set up. Configure with, you get to choose. So SIP trunking is something complicated. I don't know how that works, but it's to do with big office block routing, phony system-y things, so I don't get involved with that. So here I'm selecting Studio Flow, and I'm going to change it to number 2, which will be done, this one. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing again. Don't forget we're back to, who have we got here? Brian's in here. So this time, I'm going to show you some JavaScript. In Twilio, as I said, it backs on Amazon Web Services, so this is effectively a Lambda function. So anything you can do in a Lambda function, you can do in here. We've also got some functions. They are over. Okay. So do that again. There we go. Told you we'd get some JavaScript in at some point. So what this one does, basically all the same as before, except we've added in a time of day detection. So depending on the time of the day, it will say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. Don't leave me a voicemail. What are you doing ringing at this time? But you get the idea. You can, with this, you could have it do that if you wanted to. So this is just some very basic JavaScript. You can, anyone JavaScript developers in here? So Node.js, yeah? So you can include any Node.js library you want to. You do have to do some weird thing where you include it at the bottom of the file, not in there. In configure, I'll show you that in a minute. And this detects the time zone, and depending on the hour that you're calling to, if it's before 12, it's morning. If it's between 12 and 6, it's afternoon. If it's after 6, it's evening. We had this argument once about 2 years ago in our office. When does evening start? And we thought it was 6, but I don't know when. Is it earlier than that? 5? No. 6.
We had the
6.
same argument in my office.
6 or 5?
5.
You guys have got it all wrong. So shall we see what this one sounds like? So we're hoping it will say evening, right? Good. If this doesn't say evening, I'll be very upset. And number 2, right. Don't forget we changed back to Bruce, who sounds rather boring. We might change him.
Good evening. I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
And just to prove a point, save, done, eventually consistent, give it a while, deploying, done, ring it again.
Good codeHarbour. I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you.
So the point I'm making here is you can change stuff pretty much immediately. So if you've got a bug you need to fix, or you want to suddenly change routing or change the time of day, opening hours, for instance, maybe you could connect it to Google local API to get the opening hours, that kind of stuff. Again, it's in JavaScript. Once you're in here, you can do anything you want. Right, level 3. What's level 3? I think we added something in there. So while that's loading, I can do several things at once here.
Where's that JavaScript actually stored?
So it's stored, it's all built into Twilio, and we trust them to have their own backups and all that kind of stuff. But they are backed onto Amazon Web Services. So the functions live as Lambda functions. Presumably everything I've set up is probably sitting as a JSON somewhere, probably in DynamoDB, I don't know, I'm guessing here. But yeah, it's all entirely managed within their environment. So you're probably thinking things like, how do we back up that code? How do we version control that? That is a bit of a weird one. So everything I've used Twilio for so far has been internal use. We've used to set up our phones, so we kind of just leave it in there. For this demo tonight, we've done some gists, which we'll share at the end. But I guess if you were using this for a critical production system, you would want that code somewhere else. And there is an API. So you can actually, everything I'm doing with a pointy, clicky, machiney device, you can do through the API as well. So you'll be able to roll code up through the API. Earlier, I talked about node modules. This is where you have to put them in. So basically, this is what gets pumped into the Amazon environment before it then builds the Lambda function. So you have to go and add them in here. If you just say require something, it's not going to do it unless you say it in here. Right, number 3. Did I save that? Yes. So level 3 is where it gets interesting. That's not number 3. That looks the same as number 2. What's going on, Alex?
Different.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh yeah. It's late. It's because right. So each one of these.
Same thing.
Time of day. God. Anyway, so you can, each one of these functions you have to name. The reason why you want to name them is because in the next step, you can actually refer to them in here programmatically. And in a moment, I'll show you, everything is stored as JSON as well, so you can export it and share them with other people. Right, this one, calendar lookup, you're probably thinking, what on earth's going to happen there? Manage. Right, that's done there. So this brings in the Google API, loads a Google Calendar with a key that we will just scroll past. Time zone is still in there. Can anyone guess what might be happening here? Yep. So what this does is it connects to my publicly availability information, and depending on if I'm in a meeting or not in a meeting, the voicemail will behave differently. Should we see what that sounds like? Because actually, what meeting am I in today? Let's just go to day. That's tomorrow. That's today. Oh look, I'm in a meeting. Should we see what happens?
Good evening. I can't get to the phone right now. Please leave a message and I'll get back to you as soon as possible.
That was not what I was expecting.